This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Dan Robinson of Dan Robinson Construction Management. Dan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Looking forward to this conversation. I know you said that Sue nominated you, and we do like Sue over there. I just saw her last week at the Barry Chamber event at Jeff's Junk, which was a great experience. Seeing Sue and Trent is always a pleasure. But let's get right into your business, Dan. What is Dan Robinson Construction Management? What do you do?
We are a renovator of homes, large scale primarily, that involve taking an older home, completely gutting it, usually making structural changes such as an open concept main floor, additions. We've done third floor renos over the top of a garage addition. And by the time the project is finished, the client gets a brand new home with new infrastructure, electrical, plumbing, mechanical systems, and all new custom selected finishes.
Okay, so I buy a home. I know it's a fixer-upper, or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with that. I buy a home and I say, I like the bones, I like the landscape, I like the area, but I want to change the whole inside. I come to you for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
We can manage the entire process from design right through to completion.
Can I come to you for a basement, a bathroom, a kitchen, or are you mainly looking for that full home or entire floor, like you said?
Our specialization is in larger, more complicated projects. We do basements as well. The commitment from our clients has to be that they want to go all the way with it. So normally in a basement, we'd rip out the concrete flooring, investigate the drains, relocate them, add bathrooms, rec rooms, new lighting, maybe add a heated floor. In some cases, dig down a little bit as well. Maybe not so much so as to trigger underpinning, but even a basement requires us to completely gut and recreate it into a brand new space.
So I know very little about this world, but that seems much more like we deal with, because we're a marketing company, we deal with so many business verticals, right? I mean, from the real estate agent to the psychotherapist, to the renovator, to the designer. So we pick up a few tips and tricks, a little bit of knowledge from a bunch of different verticals. But this seems much more extensive than at least the average contractor or renovator that I speak to. Unless I'm interpreting it incorrectly, the question that comes up in my head is why go so much? What's the question? Why go so much further, so much deeper? Why do the guts go so much below in a basement than just your typical basement renovator?
A lot of our projects are in homes that are in great need of the work that we do.
I see.
And in order to have a successful renovation, we have to ensure that all of the services operate correctly. So if we start attaching plumbing, let's say, to an existing plumbing system that is defective, we're not addressing the root cause of issues. We're not going to deliver the client experience where they get that new home feel. Even if it's just a basement, the infrastructure of how everything works is intrinsic into how we deliver our service. So it has to work. We're basically going to bring all the old products that are in there up to today's standards.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And I love that answer. That's where I thought you were going with that. Not to say that other renovators don't do that. I'm not even going to touch on that point, but essentially anything that's connected with, so I don't know anything about a home. I want it done. The top floor, an addition, the basement, whatever it is that I want done from you guys, you make sure that anything that is connected to that in any way is up to snuff, essentially. So that's not just superficial. You're going much deeper. You're getting to that core issue, or at least seeing if there is one.
Yes, because I mean, the last thing we want to do is renovate somebody's home, do all the finishing, and then their sewer backs up 3 months after we're done. So there's a certain amount of due diligence. And we don't always have to tear everything out, but we do have to understand what we're connecting to make sure that when the home is delivered, it will be defect free. There'll be no warranty issues, and they don't really have to think about us once they start living because everything has been done properly right out of the gate.
Yeah. It's a great way to do business. How long do these projects often take? Like, is there an average? Like, is it 6 months, a year? I know
The
there's a variety to that question, but
Yeah, yeah. I like to use the example of building a house. I've been in the industry a long time, since the mid 80s, and we used to be able to build a house in 6 months. Ground up, excavating, maybe tearing down something, 6 months, you're living in it. Today's market conditions are much different than they used to be. I use this example as well, where on a Tuesday, I could call 3 framers. One of them would be able to start the following week. All of them would be of equal capability. Today, to get the skill set for the projects that we need, we have to wait longer because there are less tradesmen available to do the work. So the planning process takes more time. There's actually gaps in between. So we might have a week or two waiting for that framer to arrive. They are worth the wait. So we can't move as quickly as we used to because the resources that we used to take advantage of are no longer available. All the guys that I started with have either retired or died. And the new generation coming up just can't fill the space that's required to do the work that's available.
Interesting. I wonder what I'm sure but my head goes like, what are the variables to that? Why is there this gap between one generation and the other? But I'm sure that could be a podcast in it of itself. So what I'm more curious about though, Dan, especially since you've been doing this since the 80s, you run your own business, you've been in it for ages. I think people in general, but certainly I'll speak for myself, so interested in the human story. Why do we do the things we do? What got us to the place we are?
Yeah.
So what is that story? I have an unbelievable amount of respect for entrepreneurs because you are diving into uncertainty at like the highest level. There's a lot of fear there, but you're also saying, I desire agency over my own life to do it my way because of X, Y, and Z. So I have a great deal of respect for entrepreneurs. So you're doing that. And what brought you to this world? Like, what made you decide to run your own business and do what you do?
From a very young age, at the age of 12, I started counting down the years to get my driver's license. And I'd made up my mind at that point that I was going to become an auto mechanic. I'd have my own shop. And because I love cars so much, I was going to fix them and have this business that I could engage in one of my life's passions. As time went on, I became exposed to construction. And I feel like I fell in love with carpentry. And I was able to work with somebody who became my mentor and learn from him all the old school ways of doing things with a team of 4 other union trained, European origined carpenters who taught me multiple ways to do the same thing: hang a door, frame, concrete forming. We would do everything from the ground up, basically, except all the kind of specialty trades. And I had this really great 10-year start with an awesome team of people who taught me the right way of being a tradesman. And it was so positive for me. I loved it, even though, as old school guys do, we yelled a lot at each other. And but 5 minutes later, they'd say, "Danny, go get to the coffees," or whatever it may be. So there was still camaraderie. It would get heated during the battle. And that environment has stuck with me to this day. After that business closed, I tried to find other companies that I could work for where I could get the same feeling of training, of camaraderie, of friendship, of professionalism. And I just couldn't find it. So I decided to start my own business and create that environment myself.
How long ago was that?
That would have been, I started my first business in my early 20s. So we're talking, geez, 30 years ago
Damn.
now.
And do you ever look back and say, man, it would be nice to work for a company, a bigger company, a smaller company, a whatever company, or is it running your own business is where you feel most comfortable?
At this point in my life, running my business is absolutely where I feel most comfortable.
Yeah, I love it. For us, for the people out there that haven't been running their own business for as long, it's been about half the time for me as it's been for you. And it's been a hell of a journey. Like I give talks on just the value of entrepreneurship. Doesn't matter what you do compared to being an employee or some other avenue of life. Any main takeaways for the entrepreneurs out there that are maybe at the beginning? There's few entrepreneurs that have been doing it for as long as you have. That's staying power. That's saying a lot. Just being in business for 30 years is saying a lot, let alone running your own business. Any like high level key takeaways of the value of entrepreneurship that you can share with us doing it for so long?
Yeah, I think my advice to people when they're considering starting their own business is don't view it like it's a romantic investment of your time and it's going to be this panacea where you're going to gain all this time, you're going to control your life. When you start out specifically in a business, it is a license for you to work 24/7. It's a license for you to obsess about trying to grow your business and get your first customers. And you really have to be prepared to make some sacrifices. You have to be open to learning because you are going to learn a lot. And you're going to learn whether you want to or not. It's going to be painful. Nobody starts a business with no experience of being an entrepreneur and then just kind of knocks it out of the park right away. It comes with sacrifice, it comes with pain, and you have to be willing to endure that. And that's assuming you have a great idea and people are going to want to buy your services or product. So be prepared for the challenge is, I think, what I would say more than anything.
And then I have my answer to this, but you said it's going to be painful, work 24/7, sacrifice. You're not going to get the freedom that you'd hope for. Don't romanticize it. Somebody may be listening to that and be like, oh my God, why would I ever become an entrepreneur? So my question is to you, why become an entrepreneur when all of these quote unquote negatives you just listed come with it?
I feel that being an entrepreneur allows you to create the world in your image in a very small way. And by building your business, it becomes a reflection of who you are and what your values are and how you want to leave the world a better place when you're done. So these are the opportunities that you don't typically get with a typical employment situation. I don't know if there's a lot of enlightened business owners out there. There's still a lot of old attitudes and multiple generations who have very, I'd say, dated ideas of what the employment contract actually is. And it's changing very, very rapidly to a point where it should be more equitable and level. So that top down, do as I say kind of attitude is not really going to work like it used to.
Such a concise answer. You said nothing about money there, which is why I think a lot of people say, I'm going to run my own show because I'm looking at the boss making all this money. I'm making an hourly wage. I can do this. It's often money that leads us to wanting to run our own ship. But you said, creating the world in your image, an extension of you. I thought, yeah, I mean, I line up with that in a big way. But I'm really glad to point those things out because the pain and the sacrifice and all that, I don't look at those as negatives. I look at that as an avenue to find out through which I'm capable of, right? You need to have some level of pain and sacrifice. But some people hear that and say, no, that's not for me. But I think there is a real freedom in entrepreneurship through that discipline, through that sacrifice. And I wanted to get your take since you've been doing it for twice as long as I have. mentorship is a huge deal in my life. And if I can learn from somebody who's a little bit higher up the mountain than me, I'm going to take that opportunity. And one of the points to the show as well. But education, big thing on the show, big thing in life, I would say. 100 years ago, maybe it was difficult to get information at all. Now we're bombarded with information all day, 24/7, forever, whether we want it or not. So finding the good information, I think, is more the objective now than finding information. We want to be a part of that. So there's myths and misconceptions. There's confusion about pretty much everything. Certainly every business, every industry. So we like to ask the guests, myths and misconceptions in your industry. If we can take suboptimal information that's in somebody's mind right now about what you do and make it more optimal, and hopefully that leads them to making better decisions, changing behavior, and increasing the quality of their life, that's a big win. So any myths, misconceptions that you can clarify for us to help people lead to making better decisions in their life?
I think one of the biggest challenges for people is they look at a construction, a renovation, and feel they can do it themselves. Now, I would agree with most people. If you are motivated and you want to take the time to learn something, you can absolutely do what I do. There's absolutely no, I would never take that away from somebody. But here's what I would suggest, that it's not cheaper and it's not going to save you time. So the two things that I would suggest with clients is, when you're, or potential clients or somebody who wants to do it themselves, is first of all, think about the time it's going to take. So all things being equal, everything goes perfectly, you're going to finish your basement. That typical project is going to run 2,000 hours. You can do 20 hours a week. If you do the math, you're 100 weekends. So you're 2 years if you work every single weekend to do it. So the time it takes is going to be exponential. The other thing is the cost side, especially once we start dealing with larger scale renovations. Even if you read books, watch YouTube videos, and get advice from people, the benefit of hiring a experienced professional is we're going to see the mistakes before they happen. You're going to make them, and then you're going to have to fix them, increasing the time and cost of the job. So the value that a general contractor, a construction professional brings to the project is that they will prevent problems before they occur. They will save cost and make sure that the project is completed properly. Our margins and markups, again, that becomes a concern, or the profit that our business needs. Renovation companies, construction companies, if you're single trade, whatever it is, these are extremely expensive businesses to run, just in the cost of insurance, the amount of tools that we need, the time that we spend seeking out and vetting people to work with us and expanding our team, the education that I personally constantly do. I never stop looking at construction videos or examining new products that are coming out. All of these are things that I need to know in order to bring more value to our clients. So the two misconceptions are that we add cost and they could do it themselves. I don't necessarily believe that's true.
Yeah, it's amazing how common that answer is, from the real estate agent to the marketer to the fitness expert to the plumber to I don't know why it's such a common thing. For me, one of the things that you didn't add in there, my two main areas of work experience anyways, fitness trainer for about 15 years, marketer for about 15 years, essentially. Yeah, some of them overlap for a few years. But those were my expertise. Study a few different things in my life, but those are the things that I have the most amount of hours and most passionate about. Right. And I say to somebody that was especially on the fitness side of things, because honestly, I think fitness, the way that we did it, sleep, nutrition, and movement, is harder than marketing. There's more that goes into it because there's so many underlying issues with the body, et cetera, et cetera. So I said to somebody, if they didn't want a trainer, if you want to do it yourself because you're curious about it, you want to learn about your own body, and you want to go through that whole process yourself, go ahead and do it on your own. But know that it will be more costly, take longer, like you said, and way more stressful. And that's one of the things that I make my decisions on, is that stress. If I tried to do what you did, Even if it took me the 100 weeks, because I don't have the eye that you have, I haven't done the 1,000 basements that you have. I don't even know about potential mistakes because I've never experienced them before.
Mhm.
Through that whole process, I personally, and I imagine many others would be thinking, did I do that right? Is this going to fall apart at some point? So just the mental load that it would take to do these new things, like learning a new skill, I call it, whenever you're learning a brand new skill, you go through that phase of suck. And there's a lot of mental stress
Yeah,
in
you
that
had
phase
to
of
be good.
suck. So, it decreases the quality of my life, takes a ton of time, and it takes money. And in many cases, this is all just to save money. Money's not worth my stress. So I'm glad you gave that answer, because I was just talking to a real estate agent a couple of days ago. Buying and listing a house, that's a complicated process. I don't think it's nearly as complicated as gutting and rebuilding a house, to me. And I don't think there's as much severity that goes into it. Yet people will try these things. If you want to try buying and listing your house, it could go very badly for you. But I don't know that it could go so badly that you could get injured or something. Like if you
Mhm.
try to gut and build your own house, I don't even know all the potential downfalls that come into it. But I appreciate you clarifying that for us, because especially talking to all you guys now, doing like 250 some odd episodes, that is such a common response. And it seems to be so true to me in my life. Just get the expert to do it. You will probably save money. You'll definitely save time. You'll have it done right. And then the mental stress will just be significantly reduced. So that information is super valuable, Dan. I appreciate it. Going into you,
Okay.
aside from business, because we love talking about business on the show, but life is the thing that we're all doing. I think business is just a part of it. So, let's talk about the things outside of business a little bit. We like to ask the guests on the show, what do you do for fun? And I would say, I don't know, my guests, 70-80% of them would say, my business is my baby. My business is fun. And if that was your answer, I'm happy for you. I'm happy that people love their business so much, because I don't think everybody does. It's nice to be a part of a group that enjoys their work so much if we're going to do this for 8-12 hours a day. But there are things outside of business. So what puts a smile on your face outside of business, Dan?
Outside of business, I'm very interested in fitness. I used to spend 20 hours a week either prepping for or going to the gym. So that has remained with me. So I'm constantly focused on that and looking at ways to improve that. As when you get in your 50s, that it changes.
Sure.
And I have to remind myself I'm not 23 anymore. So that's almost, I enjoy it. It's fun, but it's not kind of my fun passion. The thing that I love to do most is music. So I'm a drummer and a singer. I'm a part of a studio band. We've released an album, and we still get together remotely to write songs, or in person to write songs, record them, and then hopefully release them. And then I've met some people near me where I'm joining their band as the drummer. So that is my passion in life, is music, playing music, being in a band specifically.
Amazing, man. So when you say studio, does that mean you don't play at bars or dance halls or anything like that?
I used to. I originate from Toronto, so when I was in bands, I'd be in sometimes 2 or 3 bands at the same time. I've done the kind of indie circuit around Toronto, played all the known and unknown venues there. I just haven't done it in years. Just time and life in general has gotten in the way of that. So I'm looking forward to adding more of it to my life.
And are you in Simcoe County now?
Yes. Yeah. We moved to Innisfil in July of 2020 as lockdowns were coming north.
Perfect time.
Yeah, it was perfect time. So we're kind of masked up and keeping social distance, and it just hadn't got to Innisfil and Barrie yet. But within several months, we weren't the kind of weirdos who were wearing masks at that point.
So you said you have a family, you're a family man?
Yeah, my wife and I live together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you got your partner, you got your business,
Yeah.
you're a fitness guy, and you do all this music. How do you find time for all of it?
Well, it's about scheduling. actually. I think one of the most important tools that I use is my calendar. And I make sure that whatever I plan to do, whatever I have set goals to do, I set tasks, and then those tasks go into my calendar. And then I prioritize accordingly. But really it's about the calendar, booking that time, and then committing to the time that I put into it, and then doing the things that I've set out to do.
So you preemptively plan out your life, essentially. To live it the way you want to, it's got to go in the calendar to make sure that it gets done.
Yeah. If it doesn't go in there, it probably doesn't get done.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. Buddy calls me up. He's like, man, we've been trying to get together for a month. I'm like, send me the invite. Once it's in my calendar, that's my Bible.
Yeah.
We will meet. If you don't put it in there, I love you, man, but I forget these things. If you leave it to memory, it'll be lost in 5 minutes. So exactly. I love that. Yeah. What do you do for fitness? What's your jam for fitness? You a CrossFit guy? You a spinner? You a bodybuilder? What do you like?
Well, I have some pretty significant health issues that limit my ability to train. So 10 years ago, I broke my wrist. And for a carpenter, a physical guy, a drummer, that was a really challenging time. So I've had to manage that. I have a back issue, a knee issue, a shoulder issue. And then just as the years, as I was recovering from those, I just didn't have the ability to train at all, because it just kept happening. Like every year I seemed to do damage to myself that limited my ability to exercise. So now that I'm pretty much completely healed, I am going to the chiropractor once a week. Mm-hmm. They have a gym there. So I use their gym twice a week. And my chiropractor has become my fitness accountability coach, for lack of a better phrase. They've got fitness trainers there, a naturopath. So this clinic has everything that I need to manage my health in a way where I can manage my injuries and also remind myself of my age, because that has a huge impact on what I can physically do today.
Yeah. Well, it's a great answer. Something that I'm curious about, because there's some younger people that come on the show. I'm 37, so we'll have some young entrepreneurs that are 23. We'll have some people at 70. But there's a couple things that you do in your life, that I just think have a great opportunity of increasing the quality of one's life. As again, I talked about entrepreneurship. I don't think that needs to be the path for everybody, but fitness, I don't think can harm anybody. And I really do look at it as one of the foundations to living a good life. Something that I would ask you is, like, why have you done it for so long? What is it about fitness that keeps you doing it after all these times? When someone is not involved with fitness and they hear all these injuries you go through, they may think automatically, I've certainly heard this many times, well, why are you working out? If you have all these injuries, they're probably making them worse. Or you're 50, maybe you're past the age of working out. That's a young person's thing. Some of these are the mindsets that are out there currently. So you've been doing it for, what did you say, 20, 30 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why continue to do it?
I shamelessly admit that vanity plays into it.
Sure.
I want to look good. When I look good, I feel good. So that's a part of it. I kind of got the fitness bug at a young age. At 16, I started going to gyms to get bigger. I was a skinny kid. And, I was scrappy, but I didn't like being pushed around. So I put on some size at that point. The physical benefits became obvious as I packed on lots of muscle. When you're younger, it's lean muscle. But I did all the nutrition and the proper rest and recovery as well. Recorded all my workouts, took measurements of size, of reps, and that kind of thing, so I could monitor the improvement. So the improvement is actually a really big motivator. But also for people who are kind of saying, well, I don't want to work out. Again, as I injured myself in my 40s and didn't have the opportunity to work out, I was living with constant pain. So my back was always sore. And these are things you can manage and live with. And when I met my chiropractor, he said to me, so Dan, you take care of your vehicle. I said, absolutely, religiously. I changed the oil, make sure I got to keep these things going for as long as possible. He said, so why wouldn't you take care of your body? And he said to me, he told me that last year, and that reignited my kind of passion for fitness and my commitment to it, because I'd kind of given up. I was okay, this is as good as it gets. This is how it's going to go for the rest of my life. I don't at all believe that anymore. I figure I've got another 25 years to go, and I can continue to improve my fitness every single day during that time. So that's my goal, and that's what I've set out to do.
Love it, man. I love it, man. As valuable as talking about your businesses and the connection of the show, which is meaningful to me for sure, that what you just said may have been the most valuable thing someone could say. There's a lot of people out there that could benefit in a huge way by just giving their body and mind what it needs. I often talk about, I am a counselor at an addictions facility on the weekend. It's kind of my passion project. And we deal with a slew of complications, right? Everybody that comes in there has got substance abuse, substance issues or mental health problems.
Right.
And because it's a holistic approach to this counseling, it's fitness. That's why they hired me 3 years ago. And I wanted to be trained as a counselor so I could build more self-awareness in myself, learn more about people, et cetera, the psychology behind it. Super valuable for my life, certainly. But I have found that it's reinforced the point even more about movement, nutrition, and sleep to the majority of our problems. If you feel like crap, stress is going to hit you harder. Decision-making is going to be harder. If you're walking around with lethargy every day, it's just problematic. If you feel good, you can handle all those other things better. And it seems like a lot of the problems wash away when you feel good. So super valuable point there. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. To pivot slightly, there's a handful of, all the questions on the show have their purpose, but there's a few that have more meaning than others, I think. Learning about your backstory, why you do what you do, that's a super meaningful one. But this one certainly is, we talk about doing hard things on the show. I have my list of rules for my life inked onto my skin so that I have them there with me when I need them. Number 4 is do hard things. And why do we talk about that? Because I think in this digital age, broad strokes, not everybody, but in this digital age, a big portion of it, if you go on social media, any platform, you will probably see a polished up version of life. The fastest cars, the nicest women, the nicest men, money everywhere, the superficial things in life. I think the less meaningful things in life personally. And I think there is a deep attraction to that, which I certainly was there at one point as well. I didn't know what I needed to know at that point, and that was very attractive, those shiny trinkets. And there was no embracing of these failures and struggles in our life. They were more like suppressing them. I don't want to share these with people because maybe they could think less of me because of these failures. But certainly in my life and in the people I follow, business leaders, fitness leaders, mentors, it's the most challenging experiences that these people have been through that have led to the most growth, without a shadow of a doubt. The most successful people in my life have had the most challenges, period. So we like to ask about trials and tribulations, hardships to our guests on the show for that reason, to connect with them a little bit more. If you're comfortable with sharing an experience that probably sucked in the moment, as hard has a symptom, it usually doesn't feel very good. But when you look back in hindsight, you wouldn't remove that ingredient from the recipe that is you, because it's led you to enjoying your life as you do now. Yeah. Anything come to mind?
Yes. I mean, first of all, I've tattooed on my arm as well. It's a little less lengthy, but it's my personal F5 program, Family, Friends, Fun, Fitness, and Finance. So those are the areas of my life, kind of the pillars of my life, the burners, if you will, that I focus on at any given time. So when I encounter hard situations and I don't know what to do, I always refer to that, and that will give me the guidance that I need at the moment. I'll go back to talking about when I broke my wrist. I'm right-handed. At 40 years old, I had rebranded my business to a different model of offering our services. We were out west. I was snowboarding. Best run of my life. At the bottom of the hill, I fell, used my wrist. Unfortunately, it instinctively went behind me, and it shattered. I turned it into Rice Krispies, and it was really bad. I had 4 screws and 2 pins in it. So my wrist was in an external fixator for 9 weeks. By the time I got that removed, I could barely move my wrist at all. I had lost strength in my arm. The amount of atrophy that occurs in your muscles when you can't use them is incredible. Your body adapts and just burns away the muscle, it seems. So went to physiotherapy, and then it started to get better, but then it started to get worse again. So I was having more pain. I couldn't feel the tips of my fingers. I couldn't use my wrist very well. By this time, I'd learned to write with my left hand. So months are going by, and I still can't work. I can't play drums. I can't go to the gym. All I can do is focus on making my wrist better and figuring out what I'm going to do in the future. I had to have another surgery. It's called an osteotomy, where they basically surgically break the bone because it had healed too long. So now all the nerves are off, the tendons are off. So that was better, but now I'm rolling into the second year of recovery with this surgery, doing the really hard physio so that I could gain mobility back in my wrist. Throughout that process, I still went to work. I had some projects lined up. I just started taking some small projects. I was learning to do everything with my left hand. And I started to think, I don't think I can work in construction anymore in my own business. So I actually made the decision to go out and get a job. I actually got 3 of them in a 1-year period. For somewhat of my experience, it's actually relatively simple for me to get a job. But I think my takeaways from that were that it didn't make me happy. In fact, it made me so uncomfortable and unhappy. One day I came home, and I wouldn't say I was arguing with one of my managers, but it was just a point where he was asking me to do things that I knew was wrong. And I had much more experience than he did. And I kind of broke down in front of my wife, and she said to me, Dan, listen, you don't have to do this. You can choose to do whatever you want. And at the time, I was beat up. I was worn down. I felt really weak. I felt I had to keep earning an income and providing for my family. But the way in which I was doing it was not sustainable. So at that point, I basically quit that job and doubled down on the business. I focused on retraining myself so that, again, the site work as you get older is just hard enough as it is. So I focused more on leadership and management and less on the hands-on portion of the job. And that's where we started actually growing our business. So by going through that, it truly made me realize that being in my own business, kind of being the captain of my own ship, is my destiny, and it is something that I must do.
Yeah. Damn. I was going to say, I'm thinking often people will share their challenges, which is fantastic. I mean, the courage it takes, the connection with a stranger, it's very meaningful. But sometimes I have to ask, what were your takeaways from that? Like, what did you learn from this hardship? That's the point of this question. And you just relate it to us so perfectly. And, again, for me at 37, to learn from someone like yourself, just reinforcing the point, like, we make decisions in life. We don't often know if they're the right ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you see people, right? I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty to life. But if you see other people out there that are enjoying their life, that have made the same decision, it reinforces the conviction in your own decision. So when you said, the captain of my ship, I tried the other thing. I know now that this is my destiny. I had to get my ass kicked to figure that out. It reinforces the point for a lot of us out there to have made the same decision. What did you do while you couldn't move your hand, though, is what I'm wondering. Did you continue to just make do and work somehow? Mm-hmm. Like with your left hand, you just did it?
Yeah. I mean, I still have some old sketches that I was working on because I still had projects and process, and I still had to communicate, and I like to draw diagrams to explain because a lot of stuff we're doing is in 3 dimensions. So I learned how to write with my left hand. My left hand is actually much stronger than my right hand, even though my right hand still has better manual dexterity. So that's my strong hand. So I learned how to use tools with my left hand. So maybe I became slightly ambidextrous. But, I think my real kind of takeaway was my first thought when I fell on the ski hill. And the first thing when I fell, I knew it was bad, even though I hoped it wasn't. But the first thought that came into my head was get up. And that I've also carried with me, because when I need to do something and I'm not sure how to do it, I got to get up, figure it out, and keep going. So that's kind of the takeaway that I have through this experience is it doesn't matter what happens. The pain that you feel, it is short-lived, it's temporary. So we just have to keep moving forward every single day and figure things out. At the end of the day, you can ask for help, you can do things yourself, and we can make it happen.
So through that fall, that almost became, or it sounds like it certainly did become, like a maxim for your life, is that get up mentality. It's not just 2 words. It's a lifestyle choice. It's a philosophy of how to live for you.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it, man. I love it. Back to business a little bit, Dan. If you could distill all the information, it's such a brutal question, but I like asking it. If you could distill all that information from 30 years down into a sentence or 2, 1 or 2 takeaways for the audience, specifically about Dan Robinson Construction Management, specifically about your business, not the industry, all that, distill it down to 2 main points that you would want the audience to know about Dan Robinson Construction Management, what would it be?
Do it right, do it once, communicate well.
That's what you guys do. That's what they'll get if they buy from you, essentially.
Yes.
Do it right, do it once, and we communicate well.
Yeah. So it's the whole quality is the best value mentality. Discussion rather than assumption, teamwork. Everybody is important in the project. So all of those factors. I don't do this by myself. I'm like the conductor of an orchestra. I just tell people when to come in, and it's up to them at the end of the day to do their part, but it's up to me to stay on top of it and monitor it. So we understand that problems are going to be made. Things aren't going to go according to plan. In fact, that's the first thing I tell my clients. So all the plans I've laid out, I'm going to tell you, it's not going to go the way I've mapped it out here. But listen, we're going to change the plan, and we know what our objectives are. We know what your goals are, and your vision is our mission. So we're going to make that happen. We're going to create this home for you that is meaningful and lasting, and something that you can live in as long as you choose, or even pass down to your generations.
I love it, man. This question I don't put in the questionnaire because sometimes we're afraid of people scripting their answers, although you've scripted none of them clearly. And that's what we're looking for on the show, is just a candid riffing back and forth between 2 people, hopefully having an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
But I pretty much preface this same way every single time. I say that you were talking about entrepreneurship, your work being an extension of your life. This podcast is almost a mini extension of me. I only talk about a handful of things in life. I'm only interested in really deeply studying a handful of things in life. Entrepreneurship is one, fitness, certainly purpose and impact would be one. And that's where this question is going. Mentorship, community, like those types of things, quality of life. That's what I ask about on the show. That's what I think about outside of the show. And this question is in particular about impact, which has a mentor side of it. It's simply like I was just floating through life in my 20s. I imagine many 20-year-old men had a similar experience. I wanted girls, fast cars, money. That was it. That was the life, right? That's all I wanted. But it wasn't going the way, I mapped it out. I thought, this is what I need. I'm going to follow these like music stars and just do that without the music part. And life will work out perfectly. Well, that wasn't the case. Life didn't work out perfectly. But at that time, 23, I bumped up against this mentor. She's still in my life today. has helped me change the trajectory of my life drastically from early 20s to nearly 40. And I love what I do now. Very much enjoy my life. I'm very thankful for her. But one of the main seeds she planted was about my impact, because it made me much more intentional about my actions, which I was not before. I was more like a feather in the wind, like life's current was just taking me wherever it wanted. So she encouraged me to reflect on my impact, to be very intentional about my impact for the day, because she was the first one to teach me that tomorrow may not come. And I believe that very much, so much to the point that it's inked onto my skin. Time is very much out of my control. Getting more of it, I believe, is out of my control. So she told me to be reflective on my impact thus far, be intentional about your impact for the day, and for however long you live here, however long you last, what do you want your impact to be? And so this is something that I think about a fair bit. It's directed my life in a very intentional way. We love to ask the guests on the show, Dan, what would you like your impact to be? And I will add a little extra preface to that, is a lot of people take this as legacy, legacy, posthumous. I don't know that I'll care what's happening after I'm dead, because I'll be dead. So I think more about impact now. How am I affecting the people now? So I wanted to add that in there. However you view impact, what would you like it to be?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought over the years. I don't have children, and I feel with children, that's a built-in legacy, that's a built-in motivation. So finding goals and focusing on things that are meaningful to me that I want to do today throughout the rest of my life, and then maybe being able to have some kind of impact and affect some change over the years. So one of my goals is to help 10,000 people build a lasting and meaningful home. And this is largely related, not necessarily to our clients are generally fairly affluent. They have the means to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating their homes. So there's many people out there who don't have that ability. They're precarious in how they live. So I feel that my experience in the industry can help other people, because although we've talked about not being a do-it-yourself contractor, there are circumstances where that's very necessary, where in order to build a home, they kind of have to do it themselves. So I'd like to be able to help people do that through our system, and deliver that to a much wider audience. So thousands of people rather than 4 to 6 a year. So we're looking at kind of doing that. And when I look a little bit more globally at the state of the world and where we're going, I feel that even though the world is smaller, in so many ways, we're again drifting away from each other. So I feel that I'd like to help in some way find common ground for everybody around the world. And this is where it's so difficult between cultures and religions and countries to find common denominators. But I truly believe that if the world operated on a set of basic human rights for everybody, and not the United Nations Charter of Rights, which is a 100-page legalese document, just something very, very simple, where everybody knows that it's water and air, food, shelter, education, and healthcare are what brings us all together and what every human being on this earth should be entitled to. So it's kind of a utopia in a way, but in a lot of ways, I feel it's realistic, because there's a lot of ways, in most ways, people are the same. And I think we focus on the wrong things, which is differences. So I want to bring some awareness to that.
Huge goals, man. I love it. Most people say, I want to be a good dad. I want to help people. And I think that's fantastic. If you're a phenomenal father and you're raising human beings that will better the world, that's an amazing thing. Most people haven't come on the show and they say globally, I want to spread some awareness about our similarities, that we're not that different, that we are on the same team. I think that's some very high level thinking. I think it's very cool, because I think some people are afraid to think that high level, like, what kind of impact could I have? Many of us will say. I think our impact is much bigger than we care to believe. And I think it goes way beyond our line of sight. That's awesome, man. It's been a hell of a conversation. Before we wrap up, what's the best way to get a hold of you if people are interested, Dan?
You can go to our website, and so Dan Robinson CM, as in construction management.ca. So all of our contact information is there. You can reach out to us on all social platforms. We're really easy to find. Type Dan Robinson, and you'll probably see my face come up.
Beautiful. So it's danrobinsoncm.ca. They can Google you. That's your website. And then you're on all social platforms.
Yes.
Beautiful, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Dan. I appreciate you going on this journey with me and being as open as you have been, and parting some earned wisdom on me. It's been very grateful to have you on the show, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, until we chat again, Dan, you enjoy the rest of the day. And it was a pleasure, man.
Pleasure as well.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.